The women of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina make a strong, beautiful, powerful portion of the population. Yet somehow they keep turning up missing or even murdered. In the spring of 2017, the bodies of 3 young mothers were found disposed of like garbage. Though no one is sure how many of these cases are connected, a community lives in absolute fear that a serial killer may be preying on their women. Join us this week for our calls to action in observance of the MMIW National Week of Action, April 29th to May 5th, 2022. We had to make a decision on which of the thousands of cases we could share tonight. We wish we could fit them all in. We hope that you'll be inspired to learn about more. These are the cases of Rhonda Jones, Christina Bennett, and Megan Oxendine. We will also share with you a few more of the unsolved missing and murdered Lumbee women in an effort to keep these cases on everyone's hearts. Cynthia Jacobs, Sarah Nicole Graham, Lauren Holmes, Lisa Hardin, and Michelle Driggers. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, welcome to the Lost Souls of America podcast. I'm your host, Jamie, and joining us tonight is our beautiful producer, Amelia. Hi, Amelia.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
I'm speechless because literally while I was waiting for you to show up, we had a very big update.
Yes.
Do you want to tell everybody or should I?
You can go right ahead.
So as I was waiting for Amelia to arrive to our meeting, I was scrolling through my phone like you do, and I got the incredible news that Melissa Lucio's stay of execution has been granted.
Woo! It's crazy. Yeah. I still can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. Honestly, I don't know what I expected, but I was nervous that this would not be the outcome. I was really nervous about this one.
I was too. I didn't really see it happening. So I think this is a relief that she at least gets to have another chance at this.
Yeah, they're sending her case back to trial court to review quote unquote new evidence. That's what CNN calls it. So that's great news. At least in my opinion. It was kind of a controversial case. This is actually the first one where we've had some people reach out that they don't agree with us.
Yeah. Yes, we did.
And that's okay.
Fine. Totally fine. And you know what? Now a whole bunch more people are going to get to decide again. And at least we know this time it's going to be a fair trial. Whatever the outcome is, it's going to be a fair trial. And that's what's important.
Yes, that's absolutely. I think that was most people's goal. I think that was most people's goal for this. So I totally agree with you. And I think that's a great thing. And I think even if you believe that she's responsible, you should want her being convicted with, a fair trial as well.
Yeah, you should want that for everyone. Exactly. I mean, that's the American justice system at its best, is everyone at least getting their fair day in court.
Amen. Yeah. We have another exciting update to share with you. Amelia, you got to tell them about this one.
I'm having a baby boy on Halloween.
Yay! Oh my gosh. So if anyone follows Ghost Hunting in New England, that's her spooky podcast. I got a weed whacker outside my window, everybody. I apologize. They're celebrating your exciting news. Yeah. So last week, one of my friends noticed that you could hear my big gasp in the background when you just casually dropped the fact that you're pregnant into conversation.
I did. And shout out to everyone who listens to Ghost Hunting in New England and this podcast, because I was getting blown up the day after this episode came out. Everyone was like, excuse me, did we just hear you correctly on Lost Souls? We announced it on Ghost Hunting in New England too. The episode's a week late. I apologize to everyone. But yeah, I'm pregnant, and we had the genetic testing done, to make sure the baby's really healthy, and he passed. And one of the things that you can do with genetic testing is you find out the gender really early, through the chromosomes. So we found out today it was a little baby boy, and we're really excited. We're not really like gender reveal party people, but my husband was like, well, if you found out and you wanted to like throw me a little surprise, that'd be okay. So I threw him with the help of my friend Kat, threw him his own little gender reveal, and we got him like a fun balloon and then like some balloons and banners for the yard. And we had a nice little outdoor dinner with Chipotle because that's Paul's favorite. Because
so cute.
His office is right down the street, so he comes home for lunch.
Oh, so cute. I saw the pictures. It was very cute. It was very cute. Very on brand for you. So were your announcements.
Thank you.
And I can't believe that you're due on Halloween. That's perfect.
I can't believe it either. This baby, I cannot stress enough, was very much planned and very much prayed for. However, we did not take into consideration the due date at all for 1 second. So yeah. I was not expecting it at all. When I found out it was October 31st, I like screamed as loud as I could. I like started hyperventilating. I told my husband, I was like, it's Halloween. Our baby's coming on Halloween. So it's very exciting. We're really happy.
It's just so perfect. My son was due on Halloween in Salem, Massachusetts, and now he's a spooky person just like you.
Ooh.
So maybe you'll also have a spooky son. Yay.
Yay. Maybe my baby and Wyatt will have the same birthday.
Oh my God, that would be so cute.
Yeah.
Anyway, congratulations, Amelia. I've said it many times, but I actually cried when she told me, even though I already knew in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I'm like, we're having a baby. Yeah.
There's a little baby boy coming.
Yay. Okay. So those are our two exciting announcements. Did you have anything else on your heart that you wanted to share?
I did. Yeah. This is not exciting and not happy.
Okay. So now that we got all the good, happy news,
we got all the good stuff out of the way. Get ready for
everyone's lives.
Yeah. Some more true crime. So this announcement comes out of Indiana. So on April 17th, 2022, a deceased boy's body was found in a suitcase 80 feet from a rural dead-end road in Washington County, Indiana. Police are saying the victim is approximately 5 years old. He's described as a black male who's 4 feet tall with a slim build and short hair. While police previously had reported that the boy was between the ages of 5 and 8, they're now extremely confident he's around 5 years old, but they haven't said why that is. Investigators are convinced the boy was killed within a week of his body being discovered. And an interesting thing to note about this is that based on his dental condition, the teeth were really clean and in really good shape. And overall, except for the glaring obvious part of it, he appeared really well taken care of. So this wasn't like a neglected boy. It wasn't an abused boy, but obviously something extremely horrific has happened. So the autopsy was completed this past Tuesday, April 19th. However, it didn't bring up any definitive answers for cause of death, which is really interesting. And investigators are now awaiting the toxicology results, which can take up to 6 weeks. Now, what investigators really want everyone to focus on right now is the suitcase the boy was found in. It has a very prominent Las Vegas logo wrapped around it. It appeared to be in very good condition. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put photos of that on all of our social media so you guys can see it there. Investigators are now working with the Center for Missing and Exploited Children, but so far, the boy does not match any missing persons reported, and they want to be extremely clear about that this boy who was found has not been reported missing yet. So
don't waste your time digging through the missing person databases because they've already done it. Normally, that's something I say is helpful in a DOE case, and that's what we encourage people to do, but that's not the case here.
That is not the case here, and they're very clear about that. They believe due to the location of the body, so it's in a rural area on a dead-end road, 80 feet from the road, they believe someone locally is responsible for the crime. So it's not like someone was just driving down the highway and dumped a body somewhere random. Right. They believe it's someone local to the community. They've set up a dedicated national tip line for this case, and that is 888-437-6432. Again, that number is 888-437-6432. So if anyone listening, maybe you know someone from Washington County, they haven't mentioned their son recently, maybe you live in that area and now you're thinking, I haven't seen someone in a while. I know it's kind of like April vacation time now. So maybe when people go back to school, they'll notice a boy's missing from class. It's a really, really horrific, awful case. It just breaks my heart completely. And we're definitely praying for justice for this little kid.
So upsetting. So upsetting. I wonder, I was just thinking it through as you were talking about it. Obviously, to me, that would imply also that the boy is probably from the area, because if he was kidnapped and taken elsewhere, he'd have been reported, right?
To me, that says it's most likely a family member.
Yeah. I mean,
because otherwise they'd be reported. It's been over a week now.
Not just a family member, but the caretaker, whoever was in charge. Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, that's awful. And we will definitely be following that. I'm speechless.
Horrific. It's really horrific and really gruesome.
Tonight's stories, unfortunately, are really not much better, but at least for the most part, they involve adults tonight. You know, we've spoken before about the difficulties that Indigenous women face when it comes to getting equal attention to their cases, biases, jurisdictional problems, distrust of the police. There's like a million reasons. But let us share with you some statistics.
So according to the National Crime Information Center, 5,712 American Indian and Alaska Native women and girls were reported missing in 2016 alone. But only 116 of those cases were logged with the Department of Justice. According to the National Institute of Justice, 84% of Native women experience violence in their lifetimes, and 56% experience sexual violence. Of those victims who experienced sexual violence, an astounding 97% were victimized by non-Native perpetrators. And that statistic comes from the Strong Hearts Helpline.
97%?
Yeah.
That's staggering.
It's disgusting.
So what can we do about it, though, right? Let us read for you now an action step, and this one comes from the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center.
The National Partners Work on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and the MMIW Family Advisors are organizing a National Week of Action, April 29th through May 5th, 2022. To call the nation and the world to action in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Take action by participating in these virtual events, exploring our lists of resources, and organizing additional actions in your communities on and around May 5th. Join us in saying enough is enough, not one more stolen sister.
This National Week of Action is going to culminate on May 5th for a day of awareness. We want to share with you a couple more quotes now from the Strong Hearts Helpline, which is a 24/7 confidential and anonymous, culturally appropriate domestic, dating, and sexual violence helpline for Native Americans. We'll be sure to put the link in our sources for this and anything else that may help you to take action this week.
May 5th has been commemorated as the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. Across the nation, we are called upon to wear red to acknowledge thousands of young girls and women who go missing each year without so much as a search party. Topping a long list of reasons why law enforcement officials are unable to respond in a timely manner are being underfunded, short-staffed, and jurisdictional issues between Native and non-Native judicial systems.
One thing you may notice as you're engaging in all these calls to action that week is that you're going to see a lot of red. Why do they wear red? This is also from the Strong Hearts Native Helpline.
It's been said that red is a color that transcends the physical world and calls to ancestors in the spirit world. For ceremonies and powwow, Native Americans dress their children in red as an introduction to the ancestors, calling upon them as guardians to the young. However, the color red has other uses and symbolic meanings that differ among Indigenous tribes in North America. It has been used by the young warrior painting his face and his horse. It has been used to beautify the faces of young women and their clothing. Today, the role of red is being used to call attention to the invisible, missing and murdered.
But splashing some red in your outfit on May 5th is simply not enough. So please hear these women's stories tonight, as little details as we have in some cases, but also be sure to listen and follow our calls to action. Support is wonderful, but without action, it really doesn't do much. So seek out free ways to engage if money prohibits you at all. During this week, please feel free to tag us in any actions that you take on social media, and we'll be sure to share it with our audience as well. Okay, Amelia, before I begin, I just want to say a little bit of a disclaimer that this case was challenging for me to write tonight because of the lack of information. There's tons of articles about it if you look it up, but they're all short and sweet and basically say the same thing. It's just not a lot of information. I'm going to link all the sources I used on this website. And if anyone with any connections or, firsthand knowledge of these cases wants to reach out for corrections, please, please, please feel free. Amelia, what's our email address again?
Lost Souls of America podcast at gmail.com.
Thank you. Okay. Are you ready to hear all about the stolen sisters of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina?
Yeah, I think we should just dive right in.
Our story takes place tonight primarily in Robeson County, North Carolina, an area that is 42% Native American, according to a database created by the Missing Murdered Indigenous Coalition of North Carolina. More than 600 Indigenous women and girls have gone missing or been murdered, but that number is probably higher since it's nearly impossible to get accurate. Many of these cases go unreported or even uninvestigated, and calculating this is a more recent study, despite the fact that, well, they were here first. Today, there are 55,000 members of the Lumbee tribe in this region, making it the largest tribe east of the Mississippi River. The Lumbee tribe website has a wealth of information for anybody who'd love to know more about the history, the culture, and the current events facing the Lumbee tribe today. Here is a quote from their history page. In southeastern North Carolina, amongst the pines, swamps, and dark waters of the Lumbee River, you will find the heart and homeland of the Lumbee people. The ancestors of the Lumbee came together in the shelter of this land hundreds of years ago, survivors of tribal nations from the Algonquin, the Iroquoian, and the Siouan language families, including the Hatteras, the Tuscarora, and the Chiraw. The ancestors of the Lumbee were recognized as Indian in 1885 by the state of North Carolina. In 1956, Congress recognized the Lumbee as an Indian tribe while denying the people any federal benefits that are associated with such recognition, an action the Lumbee continue to fight today. The culture of Robeson County has historically been one that created a lack of trust among the Native communities. More than 30% of the people there live below the poverty line. In 2017, the year of the main murders that we're speaking about tonight, the violent crime rate was 920.3 per every 100,000 people. If you don't know what that means, I didn't either. That is the highest violent crime rate in the whole state. Yet people on the front lines say that law enforcement officers often mislabel Native Americans as Hispanic or Black. One study even shows that 13% of law enforcement agencies don't even include Native American as an identifier. So by 2017, Robeson County, with its high violent crime rate and lack of cultural education among its police force, had become the perfect breeding ground for Indigenous cases to slip straight through the cracks. Our story begins tonight with a non-Native woman, 32-year-old Christina Bennett, who actually preferred to go by the name Kristen, so that's how we'll call her tonight in this story. Like most of the women we'll discuss tonight, the bulk of the source material you can find about Kristen on the internet talks about her death rather than her life. Before I share with you the tragedy of her passing, let's take a moment to remember that Kristen, that all of these women had families, had loved ones, had dreams, had aspirations. They all had things like a food they couldn't get enough of. Maybe they had allergies. Maybe there was a favorite sweater they liked to curl up in, or they had a favorite book. They were people with a wealth of experiences and memories, and in many cases, struggles. Sometimes their pasts were complicated. Even posthumously, their families have to still struggle with that perception in the media. For them, it often feels lonely at best, and at worst, even like re-victimizing them, wanting to reduce them down to their flaws and not the wholeness of who they were. Though Kristen herself wasn't a member of the Lumbee tribe, many of her affiliations were. Her former partner, her child's father, her friends, etc. According to one of the sources I used, the Red Justice Project, by the way, a fantastic podcast from two Native women. It's primarily about the MMIW crisis in North Carolina, but they do cover other cases as well. Anyway, according to the Red Justice Project, Kristen initially moved to Robeson County for a relationship, which I hear may have been abusive and unhealthy, but she was doing the best she could to turn her life around, according to her family. Her mom actually says that she was just days away from picking up her daughter after regaining legal custody, but she never got to do that. Because on April 17th, 2017, police were called to a vacant home near the railroad tracks on Peachtree Lane in Lumberton, North Carolina, due to a strong odor. The body of Kristen Bennett was found at 9:30 a.m. that morning. She was nude, she was wrapped in a blanket, and she was stuffed in a TV cabinet. As police began to process the crime scene, another suspicious odor was brought to their attention less than 4 blocks away on East 5th Street. There they found the body of 36-year-old mother Rhonda Jones. She was also nude, and she had been stuffed face down into a trash can. Shortly after the women were found, media was in the neighborhood putting together a story. One woman who was interviewed by a local CBS reporter had actually been a close friend of Rhonda's, Megan Oxendine. The reporter himself said that Megan appeared shaken by the horrible news, and watching the footage does make you wonder if she's just sad to lose a friend, or if perhaps maybe there was some fear in her voice for her own safety. 6 weeks after her interview, the backpack Megan was wearing on camera was found discarded in a trash barrel. Then on June 3rd, 2 young men found her nude body hidden in the bushes outside of a vacant house on East 8th Street, in close proximity to where Rhonda's body had been discovered. Now, initially, if you can believe this, the cases were investigated as unrelated, all 3 of them. But thanks to the relentless love and anger that's fueling the weary Lumbee community, the Lumberton Police Department requested assistance from the FBI after Megan's murder in June of 2017. There is currently still a reward of $30,000 for information leading to an answer in the deaths of these 3 women. Though the Lumberton Police Department and the FBI say they've been hard at work on the case, some of the families of these women feel otherwise, frankly. Sheila Price, Rhonda's mother, believes that the girls all suffered from police bias and victim blaming. Just days after the discoveries of the first 2 bodies, the police chief released a public statement saying that the women were known drug users and that this was an area of prostitution. The families felt that this did a great disservice to how seriously the case was taken, both by the police and the public. And though the women were known to engage in drug use, they were not known prostitutes. And even if they were, what do you think I'm going to say, Amelia? This does not mean...
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter they deserve to die.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
What?
One other important thing to note is that the autopsies took well over a year to get results. And other evidence processing took even longer than that, including the rape kits. When the autopsies did finally come back, the cause and manner of deaths for all 3 of these women were listed as undetermined.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Did you say a rape kit took more than a year to come back?
Yes.
How does that happen?
Because they didn't send it in the first place, because they said that they didn't think that there would be results from it because of the decomposition of the bodies. And so they chose to focus their efforts on other pieces of evidence, which they haven't shared with anyone.
Okay. All right. So it wasn't just like took over a year.
No, it was a problem. It was a problem, and the families are actually really, really mad about that. And that's one of their main complaints. Just the fact that they didn't even send it in, because it was like, what do you mean you focused on other evidence? Like, what other evidence? You haven't even told us anything. What are you talking about? And there's more to this, which I didn't prepare anything about this tonight, but there's more to it because there've been other cases in North Carolina, particularly of Indigenous women, where the processing of the rape kit was so slow that that other women ended up victimized by someone who should have already been in jail had they processed the rape kit.
That's so messed up, especially because this sounds like a serial killer. Why are you not taking this seriously? And that's what happens too, is serial killers, they prey on vulnerable people, drug addicts, prostitutes, whether or not they were, right? And then people don't take it seriously. And then they keep killing more women.
Exactly. And that's why the community is so enraged. But when the autopsies did finally come back, the cause and manner of deaths for all three of these women were listed as undetermined. Now, just to remind everyone, this means that they're unsure physically of what killed the women, but also that they can't tell if the deaths were even homicide. To hear officials tell it, there's just simply not any evidence to say so. But this has been called into question a lot by the community. From their perspective, right? Even if all three of these women happened to die of accidental drug overdoses, someone hid their bodies. Rhonda did not overdose and jump naked headfirst into a trash can.
Well, I was just going to say that.
Kristen did not take drugs, wrap her naked body in a blanket, and then climb inside the TV cabinet.
Exactly. What?
Also, I didn't say this before, but the guys who found Megan's body, when they reported it to police, they used the word beaten. They said that she had looked badly beaten. Now, it's possible that that's decomposition that they didn't recognize, but, these are guys from a tough neighborhood like that. And that was the word that they chose to use, that she looked so badly beaten that they barely recognized her as a person, her face. It took them a minute to recognize what she was.
Yeah, that's awful.
To date, police have released next to zero information about the nature or status of the case, simply that they cannot comment on an ongoing investigation. They do say there is evidence, though, and have released some of the things that the public can look for as told by the Behavioral Analysis Unit of the FBI. So they said, we believe that this offender may have left the community after this happened. If they didn't leave the community, their behavior probably changed. They may have started drinking. They may have quit their job, maybe inconsistent behavior. They may have told someone that they did it and it was brushed aside. Sometimes all it takes is for the community to come forward with that small little bit of information that matches something else that we have. That just kind of completes the puzzle. And I think that it is something that we really need from the community right now, is that little bit of information to match up with the evidence we have. We're asking the community to think back to this time frame and go, you know what? I didn't come forward then, but I think maybe I should come forward now. The horrific murders of these three women should be tragedy enough, and it certainly has caused fear in the community that there could be a serial killer, maybe even someone who's targeting Lumbee women. Whether the cases are connected or not, there's definitely a scary pattern being established in North Carolina for the Indigenous community. Let's take a few moments now to actually talk about some more unsolved cases involving missing and murdered Lumbee members over the years. Just weeks after Megan Oxendine's murder, 41-year-old Cynthia Jacobs, another Lumbee woman from Robeson County, went missing from East Lumberton. She was a good friend of Megan Oxendine's, and some sources say that she was the last known person to see Megan alive. To this day, no one knows where she is or what happened to her. I hope for her sake, maybe she ran away for her own safety, but I'm not sure that that's the most realistic outcome for her. 2017, though, was not the only difficult time for the Lumbee tribe's women. Obviously, this goes back centuries in one way or another, right? But let's talk about the 2000s to start. In February of 2015, an 18-year-old Lumbee girl named Sarah Nicole Graham, also from Robeson County, disappeared somewhere between home and the start of her shift at Walmart. According to the FBI, Graham left her home in Fairmount, North Carolina, around 6:30 a.m. on February 4th, 2015, to go to work at the Walmart in Pembroke, North Carolina, but she never arrived. Her van was found abandoned around 12:15 p.m. on February 4th, 2015, in a field along East McDonald Road. She has never been seen since. She has short hair, wears glasses, and has braces, and she was last seen wearing a blue Walmart vest. A couple years prior to that, in March of 2013, the body of Lauren Holmes, a 23-year-old Lumbee woman from Robeson County, was found in a canal off the side of the road. She'd been shot to death, and that very day that she went missing, her home was also shot up. Her mother was actually hit in the arm with a stray bullet. Most believe it was related, of course, though her case has never made much progress and no arrests have ever been made. To take it back even further, in March of 2003, the nude body of 23-year-old Michelle Driggers, another Lumbee woman, was found in the driveway of a cemetery in Lumberton, same town as the first three women. It's believed she was sexually assaulted and stabbed to death. Just months later, and only a mile away, 36-year-old Lumbee woman Lisa Hardin's body was found in the woods in East Lumberton. Her clothes were twisted around her, also indicating the probability of sexual assault, and she'd been strangled. Both of these murders have been thrown around in connection with the 2017 Lumberton murders, but there's nothing official to report as far as an investigative stance on that. But it's certainly shaken the community to think that something so similar could still be happening in their area all these years later. Early this year, in January of 2022, Deb Haaland, who's the Secretary of the U.S. Department of the Interior, created a new missing and murdered unit within the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Miss Haaland herself is actually a member of the Laguna Pueblo tribe, so this was personal for her and her heritage. Haaland comes from a 35th generation New Mexican family, and she grew up as a military child, getting to experience a lot of life at an early age. Not too long ago, she was just a single mother trading volunteer hours for her kids' preschool tuition. And today she is the first Native American serving as a cabinet secretary for the Office of the White House. To get where she is today, she lived paycheck to paycheck, putting herself through college, followed by law school. But she's never forgotten where she came from and her roots. Back then, she served as a tribal ambassador for San Felipe Pueblo. And today, she still fights for change on a national level to better serve the Indigenous populations of the country. She breaks barriers, she opens doors, and she's someone who can contribute to a lot of the good in this fight for justice for the missing, murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two spirits of the country. Earlier this month, for the anniversary of the murders, Kristen's mother released a statement through the police department's Facebook page, continuing her 5-year-long plea for information. And I'm just going to read it to everyone in its entirety. So these are her words. I'll leave you with that. On April 18th, 2017 and June 3rd, 2017, the families of Kristen, aka Christina Bennett, Rhonda Jones, and Megan Oxendine received the devastating news of our daughters' deaths. It's been 5 very long years, and those cases are unresolved and open for investigation. I'm sure I speak for other families, as we will not rest until justice is rightfully served concerning our daughters' deaths. We're speaking on behalf of the victims. We are speaking for the lives that are lost. We are speaking to the public. Please help us pursue justice for Kristen, Rhonda, and Megan. If you've heard something, know something, or have seen something, please contact law enforcement. No information is too small or trivial. If you're fearful, contact law enforcement anonymously. If you prefer, you can make arrangements to meet with a plain-clothed officer of your preference in an unmarked vehicle in an undisclosed location of your choice. But please make that call. There are no socioeconomic boundaries to tragedy. Everyone deserves a safe place to live, work, attend school, raise your families, and worship. You can remain seated by maintaining your silence or stand up and make a difference. There are those in your community walking fancy free that has no regard for human life and need to be held accountable. Someone that's culpable for heinous crimes. If you care, you will share what information you may have concerning our daughters' deaths. This is not just a city matter. This is a community matter. There are many rumors circulating concerning these cases, which are blatantly untrue and have been ruled out by investigative means. But please, if you have pertinent information, do the right thing and come forward. Kristen's daughter always had the dream her mother would come home and reunite as a family. Someone destroyed a little girl's dreams. Someone destroyed the expectations of not only Kristen's children, but the children of Rhonda and Megan. I understand there are those that are fearful, but think of the fear and horror our daughters faced with the reality that their life was coming to an end. How can anyone sit back and do nothing to help? The Lumberton Police Department, the State Bureau of Investigations, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations have worked relentlessly investigating these cases, but they still need the public support. There is still an FBI $40,000 reward offered for the information pertaining to these cases. She concluded by sharing some numbers that you can call, but I'm going to share that in our call to action and on our website, so I'm not going to read that right now. Do you have any final thoughts for us, Amelia?
No, I just think it's terrible. It's like so upsetting that like I'm just like sitting over here like thinking about all of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a heavy episode. I mean,
it's a lot to like wrap your mind around.
Yeah, it really is. And I found it really frustrating to write, to be honest. I want to serve these women in the same way that we've been able to serve some of the other people we've spoken about in the past, where I can tell you this long thing about who they were as a kid and what their favorite this, that, and the other thing was, and the things that they liked to do. Unfortunately, that information is just not out there. You know, I have seen a couple of YouTube clips where the parents speak about them with love in interviews, and the parents are doing the absolute best they can to kind of keep their memories out in the public. I shouldn't say the parents, the families, because it's Megan in particular had a bunch of sisters as well that are fighting really hard for her. But the other women that I mentioned as well, you know, all those other women who've gone missing or murdered in the same little area, the same little community, their families are fighting for justice still too. It's just so sad to me. I agree. I don't even know what to say. I'm glad that we're at least making some small changes. Like Deb Haaland is really doing the right thing and stepping up on a national level. And so that's a really important Native woman to follow. You know, we need good examples
Absolutely.
as well.
Yes, I completely agree. We need to be focused on these amazing examples of strong, very successful Native women and men who are doing things to make these changes and getting themselves this exposure to make the rest of us aware of what's going on.
Right. And creating a more diverse cabinet, which can support the more diverse needs of our national population.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the parents. I mean, I say this every week, no matter who the case is about, but I really appreciate the families that are keeping their cases out there, that are being so vocal and just begging for help, because if that weren't the case, then I wouldn't know about these women and we wouldn't be able to share this story. I also, now, if you listen to the Red Justice Project, they will point you toward their sources as well. And I know that they have other podcasts and other sources that they recommend, but I'm only going to point you there because these are two, I want to say at least one of them is Lumbee, in fact, if I recall, but these are two women who are Indigenous women from North Carolina. So that's a really good source for you. In fact, one of the women actually grew up with Rhonda. So if you want to go deeper down the rabbit hole, I would encourage you to listen to those episodes as well. If you have any information about any of the unsolved crimes I spoke of tonight, please leave an anonymous tip for the Robeson County Sheriff's Department at robesoncoso.org/reach-out /tips. Or you can contact the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigations at 1-800-334-3000. If you do not have any information about any of these unsolved crimes, but you still want to be involved in the cause like we do, and we hope that you do, here are some ways that we plan on helping and getting involved, and we would like to invite you to join us. Now, if you are someone who is located in or near North Carolina, there is a rally to support MMIW and their families on April 30th in Gibsonville. It'll be at Northeast Park at 10 a.m. And if you need more information on that, you can reach out by emailing info@mmiwnc.com. But I also really want to direct you to a website tonight that is loaded with action steps that you can take from anywhere. That website is www.niwrc.org. And if you look, there is a tab for the MMIW National Week 2022. So on April 29th, they're kicking it off with a launch for the National Week of Action. Then there's going to be a national briefing addressing the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women, MMIW. On May 2nd at 1 p.m., Mountain Time, mind you. I know we're in Eastern Time, so I want to make sure you know that this is Mountain Time. There is going to be a program called Voices Rising, uplifting Native Hawaiian women survivors and victims missing or murdered. And then on the 3rd at 1 p.m., there's going to be a spotlight on Alaska and the crisis of MMIW and girls there. And then on May 4th at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, we're going to have a program called Using International Law to Respond to VAIW and the MMIWG Crisis. And there's also going to be a program, this is fun, it's going to be a virtual 5K, 10K, and half marathon. So if that is something that you are good at, it is certainly not something I'm good at. And if you see me running down the street, you better run too, because somebody's chasing me. If you are a runner and you're into this, then you need to do this virtual 5K, 10K, or half marathon. It's called Running for Justice. And again, you can find that on the NIWRC website. And then on the 5th, which is officially the Day of Awareness, there is a MMIW Action Now Twitter storm. You want to use hashtag MMIW Action Now on Twitter that day. At 12 p.m., there's also going to be a bit of a Twitter chat. I tried to say Twitter and chat at the same time. There's also going to be a Twitter chat using the same hashtag. And then at 1 p.m. that day, there's going to be a Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's National Day of Action. And this program is going to be called Uplifting the Voices of MMIW Surviving Families, which those are women like the parents that we're speaking about tonight, the families, the sisters of Megan Oxendine, and the family of Rhonda Jones and Christina Bennett. They are the surviving families. So I definitely am going to try my hardest to join that one. I want to share with you also some other resources that you can find posted on the website. So there's a social media toolkit. You can get sample posts, you can get graphics. You can also get some more education. You can just learn about the crisis of MMIW. In particular, there's a link for restoration special education on missing and murdered women. They also have a 6-point action plan for reform. So if law and government is somewhere that you feel that you've got some strengths, that's a really great thing to check out. They have resources. They have another toolkit that's for families and communities, an MMIW toolkit. There is also an NIWRC store where you can get MMIW stickers. Love that. And you can find more information on the state legislation with the legislative tracker. And then there are some petitions that you can sign, and you can even download event flyers and graphics and some links that you can use to join on social media. Yeah, that was a long list.
There's a lot we can do.
There's so much we can do, which is why I just wanted to direct you to that website, because there's so much information there that I didn't feel like I felt it was pointless for me to even try to compile it for you. I'm just going to share you directly with that source. That's all we have for you tonight. Thank you so much for listening. You can find shareable content on our social media at Lost Souls of America and on our website, lostsoulsofamerica.com. Please share often and help spread awareness for their cases. These are the stories of the voiceless. These are the lost souls of America.